Today is October 1st, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Lorront Carney in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
I was born in Veneta, Oklahoma, February 14th, 1961.
1961. Who is your father?
My father is Leonard Hydrick.
How do you spell the last name?
Hardrick.
Okay. And your mother?
Pearlie Mae Riley.
You go through school in Veneta?
No, I actually grew up here in Bartlesville.
Okay.
My mother moved over here when I was like 3 or 4 years old. My first 2 years of primary school was at Douglas, and then we moved over into the Jane Phillips. And I attended Jane Phillips, from Jane Phillips to Central to College High.
You graduated what year?
1979.
1979.
Yes, sir.
Who was your favorite teacher?
I would have to say that was in elementary, Mr. Masato. He was the gym teacher.
Mr. Masato?
Yes.
Why was he your favorite?
Mr. Masato didn't cut no slack on us boys. He kept us straight. He was honest, and as long as we were honest with him, he gave us a fair shake in everything that we did.
Was this at Douglas or Jane Phillips?
This was over at Jane Phillips.
Okay. What did you do for recreation in high school?
In high school, I ran track.
So he taught at Jane Phillips?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you do after high school?
I joined the service. Midway of my senior year, I kind of was frustrated with school and didn't want to burden my mom with a second kid in college, but I knew I had to have a plan. So January of my senior year, I actually enlisted into the Navy on a delayed entry program. And after graduation, which was in May, I reported to San Diego Basic Boot Camp in July, right after the 4th of July. I left here and joined the Navy.
Now, why did you join the Navy or the Army, Marines, or Air Force?
You know, I thought this out, and I kept thinking, Army, there's a good chance you're going to get stationed right here in Oklahoma. Marines, those guys are pretty tough, and they spend a lot of time out in the woods. And you know, the Navy had a catchphrase: join the Navy, see the world. My geography didn't kick in. 75% of the world is water, and I got to see all of it.
So tell me about boot camp.
Boot camp was a learning experience. It was probably one of the best things I ever did because it brought me to the point where I understood authority, had to follow authority, and knew that if I was going to survive the next few years, that, you know, not only did I have to be a follower, I needed to be a leader as well. And boot camp taught me that.
What type of training did you have in boot camp?
The basics. After boot camp,
What are the basics in boot camp?
Discipline. Mostly, that was the primary thing, was discipline. There was the physical part, you know, you had to run to do the push-ups and all of that. But I think the main thing that boot camp taught me was to be disciplined, to be orderly, and it taught me structure. Yeah.
What's your most vivid memory of boot camp?
The day that the group made me squad leader, I never saw that one coming. And, you know, I got along with just about and, you know, boot camp is a conglomerate of folks from everywhere. And I seemed to be that kid in the middle that kind of fit in with everybody. and made a lot of friends. And when it came time to pick the squad leader, they chose me, and it wasn't anything that I was expecting.
What does the squad leader do?
Squad leader is kind of like the company commander for. He's right up under your boot camp leader. The squad leader was responsible for making sure that the guys followed instructions. He was the go-to person as far as the enlistees, or the boots, as you call them, would be involved with. It was that person, and you marched at the head of the ranks, and you gave the commands, and everybody followed suit.
Tell me about your petty officers in boot camp.
Petty officers in boot camp. Chief Rice was I do believe he was from Nebraska. Tall, slim, no holds barred, straightforward. He was kind of hard on us. And then we had a first class that was out of LA. And they were 180 degrees apart, but they quickly made us understand where that common ground was, and not to cross it. Just because we're different doesn't mean that you guys get to take advantage of it. So they worked out as a team real well. But again, Chief Rice was all about discipline, and Petty Officer Rashad, I do believe was his last name, he showed us the side of being a sailor, to be able to enjoy what you were doing and still do it the right way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boot camp lasted how long?
Boot camp was from July, graduated in August.
Okay.
So it was about 6 weeks.
Okay.
6 weeks.
Then where'd you go?
From there, I went to the East Coast. My first command was the USS Saipan. I reported aboard the Saipan 2 days after it returned from a North Atlantic cruise.
What kind of ship is the Saipan?
Saipan's LHA. It's a helo, landing helo. So your ships, the Navy ship's force was probably about 5 to 550, but we were a transport for a Marine detachment, helos and the aqua tanks. So when we would take on a full Marine detachment, they had anywhere from 4,500 to 5,000 strong, including their equipment.
Now what's the aqua tanks?
Aqua tanks are like the armored tanks that you see with the little gun, only smaller, and they have the capability of floating.
Okay.
So we would launch them from a well deck, and they would float ashore, and then they've got the trestles, and they'd roll on off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, were you assigned to a division on the Saipan?
Yes, I was in V3, which was the hangar deck crew.
Okay.
Yeah, so our responsibility was to bring the helos or Harriers down to the hangar deck, which was on the interior of the ship, parking, or when they needed to do maintenance, then they would bring them down. We would spot them, tie them down. Squadrons would take care of whatever evolution they needed to do, and then we move them back upstairs if they need it.
How do you bring them down?
There's an elevator.
Okay.
Saipan had 2 deck elevators and 1 mid-deck elevator. So depending on what was going on and where that aircraft needed to be spotted for its maintenance period is the elevator that we use.
Okay. Okay. Where are your quarters on the Saipan?
For the Saipan, I was 3rd deck midship, just below the galley. Good place to be. That was a good place to be.
The bunks were stacked how high?
Bunks were three high.
3 high.
So you had your bottom, your mid, and your top rack. And I usually got the top rack, especially being a boot camp. When you first report about board, you're going to get that top rack. And as you gain seniority, and people come and go, you can choose after that. Yeah.
What was your average day on the Saipan? What did you do?
Oh, most of the time Reveille would go off about 5:30. So from 5:30 to 6:30 was getting yourself up and getting your dress, uniform, and breakfast, and then to the hangar deck. And depending on the PO day, the plan of the day, as to what we would do. Usually if it was a non-fly day, then it was a maintenance day. If it was a fly day, then we were going to shuffle aircraft according to the launch schedule and their needs or their exercise. And, that could last well into the evening, so it just depended on where we were and what was going on.
Now, you worked mainly on the hangar deck?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. On the Saipan, it was all hangar deck.
Okay.
I survived the Saipan for a little over a year and a half, because we said when it first went aboard, they came in, we went in for like a 6-week maintenance check at Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth, Virginia, and then we came out, we did our workups, and then we did a Atlantic crew over to England, and we went to England. We went to Spain, where else? Denmark, all up in that area.
Okay.
So we did a 6-month cruise there, and then I returned, and it was time to go to A school.
Now, did you have a general quarters on that Saipan?
Yes. General quarters usually ran at least 2 to 3 times a month at the discretion of the CO. Of course, general quarters is a war readiness drill, to make sure you can secure the ship. You go into pre-combat, if you will, training. We had different stations that we'd have to be at. If you got assigned to one of the fire bunkers, you would report to that fire bunker, and your team would be responsible for responding to interior fires or damage control as far as flooding, whatever the event may have occurred, then your team was trained to respond to that. Some of the other points, you had the watch cons, where there were little areas up above the hangar deck that had all the controls for the ATF, fire pressure system, and all that. So if something were to occur, a fire or something, you could control that fire out of the watch con.
Okay.
And it was also a routine watch for the division.
Okay. So you didn't have one general quarter spot then that you were at?
Normally they would rotate you through the general quarter spots so that you kind of knew all the spots, because in the event of a major casualty, then you got to be flexible.
Yes.
To be able.
Now, what watches did you stand on the ship?
I usually, because this is my first command, I'm still considered a boot camp. I was an E3 by now. So usually I had night watches and watch con. So, of course, ship darkness, you're sitting up in this little booth, and it's like an infrared window screen, and you can see the hangar bay, and you're watching the planes. It's hard to fathom somebody coming and messing up a plane. Curiosity can get the better of people, at boredom or whatever. So your job was, you were a security watch for the aircraft, as well as fire or any other, thing that may cause a traumatic event aboard ship.
Okay. Now, what's your most vivid memory of the Saipan?
I would say having up in Greenland, the Marines were doing an exercise, and of course, this was the first time I really realized that Greenland and Iceland are the opposite weather-wise. So we get up to Greenland, and for whatever reason, this particular battalion was having major issues with their helos. And
What kind of aircraft were they?
these were the HM6, the big transport type helos. And they radioed back to the ship needing ABHs to help move the helos. So we got sent to shore for 2 weeks, and we weren't accustomed to sleeping in the cold like that. So yeah, that was an adventure.
Yeah.
That was quite an adventure.
Now, what helos do you have on the Saipan?
You had the little Hueys, like the little gun barrels. You had the HM6, which is the bigger transport ones, and then there was a Cobra, I think it's called, and then they also had the Marines flew Harriers, the vertical launch. So those were the type of aircraft.
Now, the Cobra's the gunship, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Looks like a little net. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And you were on the Saipan how long?
I was in the Saipan for about 1.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then where'd you go?
I left there and went to Lakehurst, New Jersey. That's where A school, technical training for ABHs was.
What is A school?
A school is your technical training for whatever MOS or whatever your job is.
Okay.
You go in, and that's where you learn all the particulars of what you do.
And
So
what was your job?
I was an aircraft handler,
Okay.
aviation bosun mate handler.
Okay.
Yeah. So our responsibilities was to move the aircraft around the ship safely without.
How do you move the aircraft?
We had these little dollies. They looked like there were 2 types. You had the mule, which is a 4-wheel, little squat, very powerful tractor-looking thing, and you had a tow bar that you would hook to the front wheels of the aircraft, and it would just pull it along. Those were mainly used up on the flight deck. Down below, we used what's called spot and dolly. It had the ability to rotate around that wheel 360 degrees, so it makes it easier to maneuver. We would use those to place the aircraft, and I mean, if you could only imagine the size of these aircraft and being able to put 20 to 25 of them on the interior of a ship, it's amazing. And be responsible enough not to ding or hit anything.
Did that ever happen?
Oh yes, yeah.
What do you do when that happens?
Well, in the event that happens, everything freezes, and the squadron comes out. You'll get a frame mechanic, a stress mechanic, just all kind of technicians, and they go over the plane to make sure that there's no stress fractures, cracks, dings, whatever. If you've caused damage to down the plane, you're going to hear about it. And I mean, sometimes it just happens. I mean, we've been in a situation where we're in rough ocean and we're having to move planes, and that boat list, it's going to go. It's just going to slide, and there's just not, we try to put the chocks under the wheel to stop it. The deck is a non-skid, which is a rough surface, so you're just hoping that for the best, but it doesn't always turn out that way.
A school lasted how long?
A school lasted 8.5 weeks.
Okay.
They take you through the whole gamut of your trade, so you learned. The lower level of the ABH is the blue shirt. That's the guy.
The
Aviation bosun's mate.
Okay.
Handler. The blue shirt is the guy that's carrying the chains and the chocks.
Okay.
The chocks are what you put on the wheels to keep from moving. Tie down chains, or it's a chain that's on a ratchet, and You hook it to the plane, hook it to a pad eye, ratchet it down, tighten it, and it keeps the, it's securing the plane to the deck. So the very first couple of weeks or week or so of your training is how to use tie-down chains and how to use chalks. And listening, being able to listen for commands from your yellow shirt, because you've got on sound attenuators. So hand signals are very important in this business. After you finish successfully with the blue shirt part, then they take you up to the next level, which for a handler is a yellow shirt. A yellow shirt is the guy that's directing the plane. He's the one providing the hand signals, whether it's a free run or a tow situation. And when I say free run, that's usually on the flight deck when the pilot is in the cockpit and he's got the plane under his control. He's using power to move the plane. So, you're taught the signals, your timing is important, so they put you in situations where, we're recovering aircraft every 3 minutes. So when one hits the deck, you got a very short time to get him out of the wire and get him forward before the next plane's coming in. So you go through a lot of scenarios and drills for that. And then the third evolution, which, not many guys make that, is that tractor driver. Cause that's a skilled profession. It's almost like being a semi-driver. Because you got to be able to back that thing and know which direction to turn to get the back end in the right spot. Like I said, it's like trying to put a semi between two pennies. You got to be very proficient. So, not many guys actually do well in that evolution, and the ones that do get identified highly, because when they ship out to their command, they're pretty well tagged. They're pretty well tagged. And then of course there is a fourth to that, and that's the crash and salvage guy. Crash and salvage guy is your emergency firefighting team on the flight deck. So you get taught the various agents that you'd use in case of a fire. If a plane crashed, what do you do? And you're an emergency, just like at an airport. You're sitting on an emergency vehicle just in case something happens.
Anything happened on the Saipan while you were there?
I didn't. On the Saipan, there were no major incidents that I can remember.
So from A school, where'd you go?
From A school, I reported to the USS Independence, CV-62.
It's aircraft carrier, isn't it?
Aircraft carrier, yes sir, gas turbine.
CV-62.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you do in the Independence?
Same thing, I started out down in the hangar bay. By this time I had made E4, so I was a third class petty officer. Automatic went to a yellow shirt, as I reported aboard, and my collateral duty was the PMS petty officer. I was an assistant PMS petty
What's
officer.
PMS?
Preventive maintenance.
Okay.
So when we were in port, there were various firefighting equipment and all kind of other stuff that we had to take care of. So we had a PMS cycle where we would, every day you had something to do, whether it's cleaning and re-racking fire hoses, making sure that the agent that's in there still has the proper shelf life. The hangar bay itself, you might have to make repairs, sweeping. In the Navy, you swept all the time. There was never a day that you could get away from a Marine. So there was plenty to do in port. When we were out to port, I stayed on the hangar bay for probably the first quarter of the deployment. Okay. And it was much like the Saipan. We were a parking lot. We brought down the planes and parked them according to their need. If it was a non-fly day for that pilot, then he was all the way back in the back in Hangar Bay 3. You know, those that were in a maintenance stage were in Hangar Bay 2, and then Hangar Bay 1 was your readiness. Those were the ones that there's not enough room upstairs for them, so you complete whatever launch to get, you know, and then they go up and they get ready to fly. And,
did your quarters on the Independence, what they about like the Saipan?
totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different. Hangar Bay crew was on the 04 level just above the hangar deck. They usually, you would come down one level and you were on the hangar bay. And they were usually midship across hangar deck 2. So that way they could port or starboard, one level down, they're on the hangar deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were stacked how high? The bunks are stacked how high?
Same 3.
Same.
Yeah, same, yeah.
Okay.
Just about all shipboard
Okay.
is three high.
Where did the Independence go when you went on board?
First time we went, we took a med tour. So we went down toward Cape of Good Hope. We went to Rota, Spain, up around Sigonella, Sicily. We went to just outside of, not Naples, Italy. We were over in Italy, Portsmouth, England, and then we came home.
When you came to these different ports, you allowed to go ashore?
Yes, you got Liberty Call.
Okay.
Of course, you have duty. You know, we were Independence. We were 3-section duty, so 3-section duty every 4th day you had duty. Okay. And the duty rotation depended on who was running it, and usually, you know, some duty days you wouldn't have a watch, but you were required to muster in the morning, afternoon, and the evening, and that was accountability purposes. Okay. Depending on where you were during duty days, you'd run drills, because if you're on duty and say you're at port and 80% of the crew is ashore and something happens, then it's just like being at general quarters. You got to know what to do. Yes. in the event of emergency.
When you were on the ship, what did you do in your off time?
Sleep and read.
Sleep and read.
Sleep and read. Airedales had a very interesting life, because in the air wing, there were days that we would do a 72, which means we were flying there was a plane in the air for 72 hours straight. And, you know, we had our little function where we get the break and you get 2 or 3 hours sleep here or there, you know, and usually that sleep was on top of one of the tractors or out in the catch nets. You know, you were still deck side. But on your time off, you learned, you know, of course we had a movie room, you could watch TV, you know, you had your own personal music, put your headphones on. I was kind of a reader, so a lot of times, you know, I'd just kind of lounge and just read.
Now, when did you go aboard the Independence?
I went aboard the Independence in 79, 80, mid part of 80.
Okay. What was going on in the world in 1980?
Not much anything.
Not much. Okay.
Peacetime.
Peacetime.
Yeah.
Now, when you went to these different ports and you went ashore, what was the attitude of the local people towards you?
Most of them were very friendly. You know, the only place that I ever really felt a little bit of a tension was when we were in Israel. You know, it's just, and I think that was more on our part, because the soldiers over there could be as young as 16. Yeah. And you know, you just didn't know, you know how to really and we weren't much older. I mean, you know, I was probably 19 by the time, you know, going on 20. But you know, it was just a little bit of uneasy feeling. But the majority of the people were very friendly. You know, usually wherever we went, you know, we weren't met with any adversity at all.
What was your attitude traveling the world?
It was different. I never thought it was something that I'd do. You know, growing up here in Oklahoma, and you know, I had the opportunity as a Boy Scout growing up, you know, to go to Canada and see a few of the states, you know, and I thought that was living. But to be able to get out of the confines of the United States and see how other people live was fascinating. It made you appreciate home, that's for sure.
Yes, yes.
It made you appreciate home.
So how long ago on the independence?
I got off the Independence in July of '83, just before the beginning of Desert Storm and all of that started. Yeah, yeah.
When you left the Independence, where'd you go?
I actually went back to the civilian world to work at Newport News Shipbuilding, but I went into the reserves.
Okay.
I was attached to an air wing, a F-16 air wing out of Oceana.
Okay.
And I stayed with them for like 5 years until they transported down to Whiting Field in Florida.
Okay. What'd you do at Newport?
Newport, I became a sheet metal mechanic. I had a little bit of experience working with sheet metal, and I worked shipboard, ship repair over there, and working with sheet metal, you know, I did ventilation systems, bulkheads, you know, what they call small metal, you know, and you know, I learned to weld, and so for the majority of the time I was on a ventilation crew, and we would go in and repair or install new ventilation systems.
Okay. And you joined what unit in the reserves did you join?
It was VA 62.
That was located where?
Oceana Network Air Station in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay. How often would you have your drills, your meetings?
Once a month.
Once a month. What'd you do in your meetings?
Usually we would, because it was an air station, we would prep and move the planes to the flight line. The pilots come out, do their routine checks, they'd go off, and we'd hang out until they come. When they came in, we'd do recover, we would wash them and rack them, put them back up. Yeah, and it was pretty much an all-day evolution because the pilots, you know, most of the pilots were reserves.
Yes.
So they are required so many hours, you know, cockpit time. So, you know, we pretty much took care of the planes for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you do in your 2 weeks?
2 weeks, it depended on where we would go. 1 year on the 2 weeks, we ended up on the Eisenhower. The reserve guys became part of the active unit, and you know, to get their deck time on the carrier, their landing time for the carrier. So we shipped out with them. We would go from Oceana down to Whiting Field and spend a couple of weeks down there. They would do what they call their bounce. You know, there was something different about the runways at Oceana versus what they had down there. So they go down there, they do their practice landings. And, you know, our job was always pretty much the same. You know, move the aircraft, put it in its right place, make sure the pilot's got everything that he needs, you know, when he comes back, you know, spot check, put it in a rack.
You ever thinking of going to flight school?
No. No, not at all. You know, I had one opportunity to backseat, and that was enough. You know, you're coming in, and when you're on the ship, you know how big the ship is. But when you're 1,000 feet in the air looking down, that ship don't look that big. Yeah, and you know, it's funny. I've got a real good friend that's a pilot, how in the world is you know, and I asked him all the time. I said, Brian, really, is it that big of a thrill? He said, man, you just don't know. I said, well, you're right, I never will. Because, you know, that first time coming in and when I spotted the ship, the first thing through my mind was like, that's not the right ship. Because it looks so small. And then it kind of grows as you're coming in. But then you realize when you're down there, that wire that's going to catch that plane is only this big around. You know, and you're going, but it works.
What happens if the plane misses the tail hook?
If it misses that tail hook, let's pray that pilot's got that hook back up and he's on that throttle and he's off. He's got a runway and the afterburners gives him that extra boost. You know, these pilots are very coordinated. I mean, you can only imagine because, you know, you don't have a full airport runway. You got to get that hook back up. You got to get those afterburners going and travel and get that ship. And I mean, it's interesting because you got the ship here, and that plane comes in and it misses, and you'll see him hit those, and he might sink just a little bit below the bow, but then he comes back up and he's off into the blue trying again.
Now, how many lines they have on the deck?
4.
4. Okay.
4 wires.
4. Okay.
4 wires. You love it when they hit 1 and 2. You get worried if they miss 3 and catch 4.
So how long in the Naval Reserve?
Right at 5 years.
5 years.
Right at 5 years. Yeah, because that's when 62 left and went to Whiting Field, and you know, married, kids, didn't want to, you know, keep making that track.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had actually left Newport News and started working over at the government shipyard, and it was a good gig. And it was sustaining me to the point where, you know, I just thought this is all I need. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
And so you left the Naval Reserve when?
So 83. Right around 90.
90.
Yeah.
You just missed Desert Shield.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
After you left the Navy, what'd you do?
After I left the Navy, like I said, I went to work at Newport News Shipyard, and I was there for a couple of years. And then, funny story, a good friend of mine was working at Newport News with me, and one day he called me and he said, hey, he said, do you know where the Naval Shipyard is in Portsmouth? And I was like, well, sure. He goes, they're hiring. And he goes, can you take me over there? Yeah, I want to fill out an application. So I took him over and he filled out an application, and while we were there, the lady says, oh, what about you? And I was like, no, I'm good. And he was a pipe fitter, you know, and I was a sheet metal mechanic. And she goes, well, we're hiring in the sheet metal department too. I go, really? And she says, yeah. And she started talking, and she says, you a veteran? I was like, yeah. And she goes, you'll be in the gate next week. You know, because veterans have preference. And I was like, really? So I went ahead and filled out the application, not thinking much about it. Before we got home good, I got a call for an interview. It took him a week and a half to get an interview. But long story short, yeah, I went to work at Portsmouth, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, although it is in Portsmouth, Virginia. And started out in the sheet metal department, and got loaned out to the temporary service shop to help build some electrical panel booths, me and another guy. And after about 4 months, we got assigned to the temporary service shop, and I stayed with the temporary service shop, Shop 99, for the rest of my career. It turned out, you know, worked a few Tiger teams, nuclear refueling, left there and became an instructor. left the instructor's gig and became process improvement manager. And that was my last gig, was the process improvement manager before I retired in 2012. Yeah, so it was a good career.
Now, when did you come to Bartlesville?
I came back to Bartlesville permanently in 2012.
Why'd you come back here?
Well, there was a lot going on. My stepfather had gotten sick, and no one was really in a position to, because of their jobs, they weren't in that position to be able to take care of him the way we wanted him taken care of. And the opportunity for me to retire, was there. And so I figured, and plus I had started dating a young lady that I had grew up with. We'd been friends since elementary school, and we were both divorced, and there was a little romantic tone there. And so it was a good opportunity for me.
Yes.
And financially, here versus the East Coast, that was a no-brainer.
Yes.
Yeah.
During Desert Storm, do you think about getting back in service during Desert Storm?
I did. I really did. But I think my contribution for Desert Storm by being at the shipyard and doing readiness work for active duty was equally as important.
Now, did your work at the shipyard change during Desert Storm?
Did I say that again?
Did your duty at the shipyards change during Desert Storm?
It didn't really change, but what it did do was increase turnaround quality, really increase. I mean, we were always a quality shipyard, but the stress for quality was amped up big time, because a lot of times we didn't have as much time to make repairs to get these ships back to sea. Transport ships were vitally important during Desert Storm, and so turnaround was important. Flyaway crews were important. When I say flyaway crews, they would put a crew of mechanics from various trades together, and you traveled. You'd go find that ship somewhere to make the necessary repairs to keep from bringing it in port. You repaired it out there. Our heavy metal folks, they spent a lot of time in one of the bases over there, where they would go and outfit the Humvees with the metal protection package that was developed. Some of those guys would be over there for a year at a time. So the patriotism from those of us at the shipyard really ramped up. We were a vital part of the success of that ground soldier or that Navy guy that was out on the sea. So I felt like that where I was just as important as to where they were. Yeah.
Would you join the Navy again?
All over again, yes sir. Yes sir, without a doubt.
I'd like to do word association.
Okay.
I'll give you some words, you give me a reaction.
Okay.
The first one is boot camp.
Boot camp maturity.
Petty officer.
Petty officer is the beginning of leadership.
USS Saipan.
A cold but enjoyable ride.
A school.
A learning experience.
USS Independence.
A change of life.
Airplane handler.
Dangerous but fun.
Ronald Reagan.
Very intriguing and interesting.
Bill Clinton.
good leader.
How do you want to be remembered?
A guy that enjoyed life, hopefully making a difference and setting a pattern for my children to follow.
Anything else you want to talk about?
You know, I just want to say that, you know, the opportunity to serve this country was my pleasure. It brought me a long way. It provided me a good living. It's taught me to be the person that I am today. And hopefully one of the reflections that people will get from me is that no matter what color you are, nationality you are, what religion you are, we all have a commonality.
Yes.
And that's that we're God's children.
Yes.
And that we can work together.
Yes.
Bottom line.
Westside Community Center.
Love it. It's been a part of my life all my life. Westside Community Center was located over on Oak Street by the railroad tracks when I was growing up. And I was a semi-privileged kid. I lived over in the Jane Phillips area. I was accepted at the West Side. I was accepted at the Boys Club. And we had fun. That's where we spent our youthful days. The activities were plentiful. And, you know, we'd go there and hang out. And we just had a good time. And to me, that's one of the goals that I'd like to reestablish here, is that the Westside Community Center becomes a hub for the kids that don't have anything to do. Come here and join these activities here. We will create activities. You come, we'll make it happen.
Sir, this is an excellent interview.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing it.
I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
You as well.
And again, this is October 1st, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Lorront Carney in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
There.